Okay, let's talk about Blitz, right? So along with mass box openings, selling singles, this is one of the other big linchpins of an LGS being successful with FaB. A casual, nice, easy format that's quick to get into, play some games, and learn the gist of Flesh and Blood. Problem is, Blitz has sort of been on this downward slide, downward trajectory for a little bit, and this little back and forth on this Reddit post actually do a really nice job of discussing it. So we'll start there, right, and then I'll get into my piece. But for anyone who doesn't want to watch the entirety of the video, right, here's the clear cuts, my opinion. The factors of Blitz have not been ratioed correctly, right? Blitz was always doomed to fail from the very beginning. You have 2/3 the deck, you have 2/3 the specific card choices, right? You have half the HP, but nothing was ever done to intellect. Yeah? So again, you're now having a smaller deck, easier to draw through, easier to find specific pieces. You're now having less HP, less to play around with, to forfeit in order to return with a more aggressive turn, to then still have the same power, right? What you can do in your turn still has the same power, because you still have access to the same number of cards. So for instance, if Blitz was one less intellect on every single hero, how do you think that might fit, right? I think, personally, and from playing around with and trialing it, right, that it would be a more strategic game, more in line with Classic Constructed. It would probably slow it down a bit, but it'd still be quicker than Classic Constructed. You're still playing around with 20 HP, but your choices are much more impactful, right? Being able to forfeit your turn and only have 3 cards to play means you're not going to combo off the same way you can with 4 cards if you forfeit your turn to take damage. Similarly, if you block and you sacrifice a card, now that also undermines exactly what you're doing. When you look at the early Bravo deck, right? So Bravo is a nice example because it's just clear cut, right? Bravo just wants to do one thing on his turn. So with this hand, with 4 cards, right, we can crush confidence, right? So I can easily block for 6, get rid of 2 cards, and feel comfortable being able to also play crush confidence. It has a decent, chance effect on hit effect, crush effect, right, for our opponent to want to try and block it. It's 5, so they'd have to most likely double block it or use equipment or anything like that. So again, I can be comfortable blocking 6 damage and then trying to do something. If we were to cut this down to 3 cards, right, we'll get rid of Crush Confidence. Well, now my turn looks a lot worse, because if I want to debilitate, right, or if I want to do anything in general that's not just swing my weapon, that's apparently not on board, right, then I would have to take the full brunt of my opponent's damage. But in doing so, in taking my opponent's damage, if I'm only dealing with 3 cards instead of 4, chances are they're not going to be able to output as much damage. Still going to be quicker, right, than Classic Constructed, because of that 20 life pool total. Again, it's half. It's not a third. It's half life for a third loss in terms of deck and card quality. So in that sense, right, I think the choices would be a lot better if intellect was ratioed in the same sort of manner. And you could take it a step further if you want to personally try this yourself, right? Draw back to your intellect, play Blitz like normal, draw to 4, draw to whatever the intellect on the hero you're playing is, but just put 1 card to the bottom of your deck. Give yourself that more strategic feel where you get your full 4, but you have to get rid of 1 card, again, to try and ease in the overall power level of Blitz, but still have that strategic option. And tell me honestly how it feels, if this is, a viable change for Blitz, because again, in my opinion, I do think it is. But back to the long-winded, and then we'll go into that in a bit more detail. But we have, again, how do you talk about new interested players, about the price of the game? And the reason this has sort of shifted to Blitz is, again, Blitz is meant to be the entry to the game, right? You buy a precon, you can then play with the precons. Problem is, the precons have very, very rampant level qualities, right? Some are okay, some are horrible, some are, potentially playable, but the majority not in a competitive sense. So once you get into that proper realm, well, then Blitz falls off immensely. So we have, personally, myself and my play group prefer Blitz, but because of the way LSS has treated it, in the reality of the situation is, if you want to be able to play the game with most people at armories or big regional events, you're going to have to end up transitioning to Classic Constructed. Again, meaning that the entry so far is the 4 history pack decks, which from recollection are not that great. In fact, I think some of them, or a lot of them actually, have cards that aren't legal either. Then you have the 1 armory deck that we're seeing so far, followed by most likely 2 more for this year, which is not a huge population when you have a wide variety of heroes, nor is it something like the classic battles if they were to make that in a classic constructed version where you can pick it up and you can rope someone in and you can learn the game mutually rather than trying to buy a deck out of the box, going to events and most likely being kind of squashed, right? So yeah, Blitz is fantastic when we look at pre-release events, because again, it's more akin to Blitz than classic constructed. Or if we look at the release day, the play day events, right, where you use the precon decks, and because it's in that bubble where everyone is using the precon decks, it is a lot more even of a playing field and therefore a lot of fun. So in some way or the other, it really needed balancing, tweaking, and heavy restrictions to the card pool, again, to lower the overall quality. Because although the game hasn't necessarily power creeped in the sense of stat lines being significantly bigger, what it has power creeped is your ability to chain X things together, right? Being able to, even as, say, Brute or Guardian, do more than one thing in your turn, one big thing in your turn, is super impactful and a lot more damning to Blitz than it is to Classic Constructed. Savage Sash, to me personally, as fun as the card is that tipping point where Blitz is now just an utter meme format, right? Any normal deck against a KO or Reiner, Blitz Savage Sash deck is just on a ticking clock, right? Because they can pop that turn 1, they can pop that turn 2, and they can just completely run you over. If you cut one card out of the hand again, then trying to think about it, well, they can combo off, but it's going to be a lot less impactful. It's still going to take a huge chunk of your life, but it's not going to run away with the game, in my opinion. So unfortunately, LSS is weaning us all off of Blitz, and they're not being secretive about it. They've openly stated that it's a side format, right? And we've seen it sort of lose presence at all major events and everything like that. You can clearly see this with the Blitz products for this set where you need to buy an expensive bundle. This is a whole nother reason, in all honesty, right? Rather than, well, we got time. We'll jump into this too. Okay, so the reason LSS are not selling the products individually is, do you know what the worst scenario possible is? I'll give you a little second to think, right? So imagine a store. They buy their displays because they're buying Blitz decks by displays, right? And then you have two, but one of them not set, right? So imagine, say, just Enigma and Nu. Hugely popular. Zen, absolutely not, right? So every time they sell two, Nu and Enigma, sorry, no, it's at 9 in a display? I'm trying to remember. Either way, imagine they sell out of Nu and Enigma, and they're left with Zen. Well, they're eating that loss on Zen, because they're most likely going to order another display so they can restock Nu and Enigma, right? So any profit margin they could have made off of Enigma and Nu is most likely forfeit because of Zen, right? Because they're eating the entire cost on the Zen deck. So in that situation, for LSS to bundle it together is a lot better for an LGS because it's an all or nothing event. Either we sell the product or we don't, right? Rather than we sell portions of it and the rest sit on the shelf, again, eating into the profits that we just made. So that's my opinion towards the bundle and the rationale behind it. But yes, it is clear that they are, again, transitioning. They have openly said that Blitz is just going to be this fun format, but it doesn't serve a casual sense because it's not the entry as constructed. It's going to become its unique own thing, its own fun thing, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to serve as that casual, easy, time-conservative pathway to learning the game, right? If you sit down for a classic constructed deck, especially as a new player, that's going to take a lot of time, right? Because you are going to have to think things through, you're going to have to ask questions, and it's going to be a lot longer of a learning experience than just, going back-to-back Blitz, losing, and picking up the pieces from there. I think that is a much better way to learn the game, in all honesty. I'd rather learn through fire than, again, spend an hour playing Classic Constructed. To me, this is an LSS problem. I can't blame the players for not gravitating towards a format that LSS themselves openly state they don't pay much mind to. Yeah, again, it is just going back to the issue, right? Any cards they print have, minor impact on Classic Constructed, we'll go with, but have major impact on Blitz because of quality, because of deck size, because of, again, the life total. So, yeah, intellect to beat ratio, that's my fix, in all honesty. I'd still like to think that Blitz is still a format that is being introduced somewhat like a default state to FaB, like pre-releases, the introduction of the new set, we were playing with young heroes, not adults, which again, right, so the pre-release events and the playday events using the decks, I think are fantastic, right? Having events in a community sense where you can, get lots of games out, where you can cycle around, where you can, again, have that friendly, energetic environment is a lot better to me than Classic Constructed. But we are, again, transitioning away from Blitz being that concept to play day events or pre-con events and pre-release events or draft and limited, right? Because again, the power level is in a bubble. It's contained. It's not just open to every single thing. So the main issue with this argument is Blitz can have widely different power levels, exactly, and it's very swinging at its tip-top performance. An optimized Blitz decks is miles ahead of a precon. I completely understand that that's natural for TCGs in general. That's not the problem. The problem is presenting the format itself as enough to fill in the gap between new and competitive players. Blitz is a great entry to the game, provided the involved in franchise players power down to match the levels of new players. And this can be said for Classic Constructors as well, right? Again, if you were to, whenever we get to the point of having, a proper line of precon decks, were just to play precons, that would be a much better entry. Once you start throwing in legendaries, once you start throwing in, min-maxed majestics, then that's where it gets a bit problematic, because although, again, FaB is a heavily skill-reliant game, cards are still impactful, and in the right hand, where you are skilled and have the better quality cards, you are going to run over the opponent. Blitz is no longer strongly spawned by LSS in tournaments because the format is hard to balance with cards are designed for Classic Constructed in mind. When you create strategies to take a play from 40 to 0 life, and you play the same cards in a format where the decks are smaller, and you just have to deal 20 damage, matches can end fast. That's the reality of Blitz, exactly what we're saying. I don't see a way around that. Intellect, dead, card, and hand size. The amount of cards you can output, sacrificing card to block, all of that becomes hugely more impactful, but I think it still gets outpaced by the fact that it's half-life, right? Nor do I feel like there necessarily needs to be one. Again, this to me is something that in one way or the other needs to change, or something needs to replace it, and quickly, right? We don't know what the strike decks are, so whatever they are, right, because they are meant to be this introductory product, could handle this, but I don't have high hopes with the track record, in all honesty, right? The KO deck, again, there was good and bad things about it, but again, something needs to be done. Something needs to be done relatively quickly. Heck, something needed to be done, ages ago. Same in the sense that, how long we've asked for Classic Constructed precons, right? It is a vital factor in, again, maintaining LGSs across the board. You have casual events, you have box sales, and you have singles. Singles isn't something every LGS is going to do, and we'll talk about that more when we get back to box breaks. And then box sales in themselves, if everyone is, again, educated and driven towards a singles market, that suffers. So then you need, again, a proper saving grace by way of a nice, casual, quick format / event that can rope players in, educate them, and get them enthralled in the game. So in short, casual pre-con Blitz is the tool to get new players in the door. If you have a solid local community, Commoner is also pretty great, allows deck building to flourish, tends to be simpler, and is very budget friendly. Having a battle box to introduce new players, right? So just a bin of cards, I assume that's what they mean, right? Where you just got, cheap pre-con decks that you've made from all the loose singles and everything. But again, these aren't, okay, I don't, again, want to ever undersell what LSS does, because, again, we have the IRA decks, we have promos, we have all these other really good, helpful starting points for LGSs to make use of from LSS. But it shouldn't be up to the LSS to be cracking boxes, to be assembling these decks, and running the community. Again, I think LSS have done a wonderful job inserting the game into select areas, but they do a very, very poor job of maintaining it, right? And actually making sure that it's continuous and up and running and going to be sustained over the course. And again, the big factor that goes back to this is the ability to run casual, new player-friendly events like Blitz, or I should say precons, maintaining box sales, or, again, being incentivized to crack the boxes and sell singles as a store. I think this sort of sums up perfectly the situation we're in after 5 years of development. Preserving Blitz as the format to introduce players to the game is as wrong as throwing new players into Classic Constructed. The difference is that Blitz has tens of precons, while CC is just now starting to get the precons, right? Whereas, we had Classic Constructed precons at the beginning. Then Blitz was made, again, to be that easier introductory format. I just, again, don't think it was completely thought out to be power creep proof, right? Or to stand up and actually be a ratioed version of Classic Constructed. So then they invested all this time into developing the product lines for Blitz. But by then it was too late, and the damage was done, and Blitz just became this meme format where, you know, games last 2 to 3 turns with a proper optimized deck. And again, the mismatch in power level is a problem that needs to be addressed, and simply playing Blitz doesn't solve that. Because the other big thing is no one wants to power down, right? If you've invested, if you've tuned your deck and, you know, you've min-maxed as much as possible, you've gone out, you've found all these cards that you specifically wanted to play with, to then be told, look, I'm new to the game, can you take some stuff out so we can have a more even playing field? It's just, that's never going to feel great. But again, it's more impactful for Blitz than it is for Classic Constructed, but still relevant to both. So we will just have to, you know, wait and see, right, what exactly the strike decks are. But I would personally like to see, you know, some sort of change to Blitz to get it back on track. But I can also see this vocalized a lot, right, as commoner being this big entry format where, again, you can play format of your choice, be it Blitz or Classic Constructed, again, just with all power level of cards reined in to be, again, a bit better for welcoming new players than them getting a precon and you bringing your top 8 net deck, right? But yeah, going back to Blitz, I do just want to, again, go over this a little bit better. So again, with Blitz, just the one impactful change I would make is either all heroes have 1 less intellect than what is written on their cards. But again, that could be a headache and cause confusion if they, you know, were to implement that and then print young heroes with less intellect and then they don't actually get affected by the rule, but still balanced. So what rule, or I guess tweak to the format I'd rather implement is, again, you draw to your intellect and then you have to put 1 card to the bottom of your deck. It allows you strategic choice, right, to plan your next turn, to decide what cards you want to keep. It'll allow you to cycle through your deck a lot quicker. Overall, I think it will make just it feel a lot more strategic. But then you also have the benefit with that 1 less card in hand, right? Sacrificing to block isn't as detrimental because whatever return aggressive play that your opponent is going to cook up is using 3 cards instead of 4, and that does. As someone who plays predominantly combo decks, right, trying to string cards together most effectively, having 1 less card in hand is super impactful. And you'd also have the impact of being able to teach players the importance of certain cards in certain situations and matchups, right? So if they were to draw 4 cards at the end of their turn, then be educated, right, which card is the least valuable in the current situation, I think that's a fantastic idea, right? It also then teaches them to do more with less without being penalized, right, by taking this immense amount of damage that, again, results in Blitz being way too quick than it necessarily needs to be. So again, I would just say, right, give it a go, right? Play Blitz, rope someone into it, use either ruling you want, right? 1 less intellect, so 3 cards most likely, or, again, draw your hand, but put 1 card to the bottom of your deck at the end of each end phase, and see how it goes. See if you enjoy it more, see if it, again, extends the length of time the Blitz is being played, and sort of reins in that just bursty, combo, meme-centric nature that, again, has changed Blitz from what was work and effort by LSS to try and mold it and shape it into the casual entry format for the game to what it is, unfortunately, now, right? It feels so horrible to me looking back on it that they made this pivotal decision not to focus on Classic Constructed to try and build something up, and it is just going to end up being a complete another waste that they have to completely retool from scratch. So I would rather see Blitz, in all honesty, salvaged in some fashion. But we'll leave there. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah.